Beijing's top economic officials outline plans to achieve this year's 5% economic growth target. In Hong Kong, the top court overturns convictions of 3 core members of the now-disbanded Hong Kong Alliance, who were sentenced to jail for rejecting police requests. And U.S. President Donald Trump issues last warning to Hamas as U.S. confirms direct hostage talks. Good evening. You are watching Cable News. I'm Evelyn Bai. Mainland's top economic officials today unveiled plans to achieve a high-quality 5% GDP growth target for 2025, as laid out by Premier Li Qiang at the opening session of the National Legislature yesterday, spotlighting tech innovation, strategic investments, and market reforms as key drivers. Kun Tian-yang tells us more.
Justifying the ambitious goal of a 5% economic growth rate, Beijing's top economic planner, head of the National Development and Reform Commission, Zheng Shanjie, framed it as both scientifically grounded and executable, citing mainland's 135 trillion yuan economy as a springboard. To fuel growth, Zheng said Beijing will inject 300 billion yuan into consumer subsidies for auto and appliance trade-ins, doubling last year's spending, while rolling out a 5 trillion yuan state investment package, including a 1.2 trillion yuan ultra-long special bond for infrastructure. Private capital will also be mobilized for railways and nuclear projects, building on 8,000 public-private partnerships launched last year. Meanwhile, Central Bank Governor Pan Gongsheng signaled proactive easing despite global inflation pressures, including further cuts to the 6.6% reserve requirement ratio and expanded lending support. Addressing global trade tensions, Commerce Minister Wang Wentao outlined a 3-pronged response, maintaining export support through expanded credit insurance, scaling cross-border e-commerce pilot zones, and accelerating free trade agreements to counter unprecedented protectionism. In parallel, Securities Regulator Chairman Wu Qing unveiled measures to stabilize financial markets, introducing stricter penalties for fraud, enhanced protections for retail investors, and incentives to attract pension and insurance capital into equities. Reforms to tech-focused boards like the Star Market will prioritize funding for AI and biotech firms, Wu said. Kun Tian-yang, Cable News.
The city's highest court has ruled in favor of Chow Hang-tong and 2 other key members of the now-dissolved Hong Kong Alliance in support of patriotic democratic movements of China, overturning their convictions and sentences for refusing to submit information to National Security Police. Xu Rin reports.
Justice is in the hearts of the people. Teng Ngok Kwan, one of the 2 other defendants, made the remarks as the Court of Final Appeal ruling acquitted them of charges for refusing to comply with a police request for data under the National Security Law in 2021. Along with the Alliance's other former executive committee, Choi Hon Kwong, both have already completed their sentences in connection to the case. Meanwhile, Chow, the former vice chairperson of the organization, remains in custody, awaiting trial for a separate subversion case. Chief Justice Andrew Cheung and 4 other Court of Final Appeal judges unanimously agreed that the prosecution needed to prove the alliance was a foreign agent in order to convict them. However, the lower courts fell into error in concluding that it was sufficient for the police commissioner to simply reasonably believe the alliance was a foreign agent. Additionally, the top judges ruled that the prosecution had extensively redacted investigation documents under the pretext of public interest immunity. The judgment wrote this not only failed to substantiate the defendants' alleged foreign agent status in a self-defeating manner, but also violated their rights to a fair trial. The trio had originally been sentenced to 4.5 months in prison in March 2023. Cheryl Yun, Cable News.
In a separate development, the top court has upheld the sedition conviction and sentence of jailed activist Tam Tak Ji in a landmark challenge of a since-repealed sedition law under the colonial era. A 5-judge panel led by Chief Justice Andrew Cheung also maintained the former radio host and former vice chairman of People Power's jail sentence of 14 months over 11 charges, including altering seditious words. Tam's lawyers argued that the case should have been tried by a high court jury, not a district court, and that the prosecutors should be required to prove the defendant had the intention to incite violence or public disorder to secure a sedition conviction. However, in the written ruling handed down today, the apex court dismissed both arguments, saying it was valid for a magistrate to transfer the case to the district court. They also ruled that a person can be held liable for sedition even without intending to incite violence or public disorder. As a new round of the Housing Authority's White Form Secondary Market Scheme opened up for applications, early birds flocked to get an application form in the hopes of buying a government-subsidized flat to improve their living conditions. This year, an additional 1,500 quotas will be allocated to youngsters. Xu Run reports.
At the Housing Authority Customer Service Center in Lok Fu, people started rolling in as soon as the application forms became available at 8 a.m. With extra slots set aside for individuals under 40, this woman came to collect an application form for her son, aiming for an upgrade from the current subdivided flat. She expressed her desire to provide her son with more personal space as he grows up. Another woman came to collect a form for a friend in the early 30s who is planning to get married soon, noting that it was great news that more young people have the opportunity to enhance their living environment. A total of 6,000 units will be offered this year. Although only 3/4 of them are available for ordinary applicants, it gives no excuse to those wanting to improve their living environment to try their luck. This man wanted to give it a try as he currently resides in a crowded home, adding that he has been failing to get a flat from other housing societies' subsidized home schemes or public housing units in the past 7 years or so. Eligible citizens must submit their white form applications by 7 p.m. on March 26th, and the ballots will be drawn in the second quarter. The lucky ones can expect approval letters in the third or fourth quarter of the year. Cheryl Yun, Cable News.
The Urban Renewal Authority's Pilot Development Facilitation Services project at Shantung Street and Thistle Street in Mong Kok received 28 submissions of expression of interest. Among those developers who have submitted their EOIs were Great Eagle, China Overseas, Chinacam Group, and Empire Group. The project site spans approximately 26,000 square feet, with a maximum developable gross floor area of about 160,000 square feet. The URA relaxed the residential plot ratio selling from 7.5 to 8.5 times, expected to yield around 380 residential units. Additionally, the project must allocate around 30,000 square feet of floor area for government, institutional, and community facilities, which will be exempted from the total GFA calculation. Based on market estimates, the project's valuation ranges between $760 million and over $900 million, with the highest predicted land price per square foot of GFA at about $6,000. The DFS approach aims to increase the transparency of project information, allowing developers more time to prepare for future tender submissions and hence reducing the odds of failed tenders. The government urged the public to beware of some scammers impersonating the chief executive to disperse fake financial news online. A government spokesman prompted residents not to fall for the fake information circulated online, claimed to be announced by the chief executive, about the launch of National Hong Kong Coin on blockchain, clarifying that the information is totally untrue with fraudulent intent, and strongly condemned those who have tried to distribute fake information in the name of the city chief. The incident has been reported to the police for a follow-up investigation. Social welfare lawmaker Tik Chi-yuen warned he may vote against the government's 2025-26 budget unless the authorities revise plans to slash funding for social service providers by 7%, as he called the cuts a direct threat to frontline caregivers and vulnerable communities. Kun Ting-yang reports.
Under the proposal, small and mid-sized nonprofits relying on block grants face a 3% annual budget reduction, with the Social Welfare Department absorbing the remaining 4%. But Tik argues even this trimmed cut will force smaller agencies to reduce staff, as 80% of their budgets cover salaries. You can't cut utilities or rent, as these are fixed costs. Slashing jobs will hurt morale and service quality, Tik told an iCable News program, urging officials to help agencies diversify funding through partnerships with groups like the Hong Kong Jockey Club. While Labor Secretary Chris Sun cited the sector's $4 billion reserves as a buffer, Tik called it a temporary fix. Reserves might last 2 to 3 years, but this isn't sustainable. He pressed for long-term solutions, including new fee-based services like premium elderly care to reduce reliance on subsidies. Tik, part of the centrist Third Side Party, stressed his opposition could escalate if the government refuses flexibility. We must defend our sector. A veto isn't off the table. Kun Ting-yang, Cable News.
U.S. President Donald Trump on Wednesday issued what he called a last warning to Hamas, demanding the immediate release of all remaining hostages in Gaza. This came just hours after the White House confirmed unprecedented direct talks with the militant group, a historic shift in U.S. policy. Kun Ting-yang has the story.
Release all of the hostages now, not later, and immediately return all of the dead bodies of the people you murdered, or it is over for you, Trump declared on his Truth Social platform, following a White House meeting with 8 freed captives. He vowed full military support for Israel, calling Hamas sick and twisted for withholding the remains. The warning came as White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirmed rare U.S.-Hamas direct negotiations mediated by Qatar and Egypt. Special Envoy Adam Bowler reportedly met twice with Hamas representatives in Doha in recent weeks, the first time since the group was designated a terrorist organization in 1997.
Is it just about the hostages, or are they also talking about the president's plan to take over Gaza?
These are ongoing talks and discussions. I am not going to detail them here. There are American lives at stake.
Hamas confirmed the meetings as progress but shared no specifics, while Israeli government said it had expressed its position without elaboration. The unprecedented talks occur amid uncertainty over extending the Israel-Hamas ceasefire. Trump signaled he won't dissuade Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu from resuming military action unless Hamas accepts a new proposal requiring the release of half its remaining hostages for a truce extension. Notably, Israel has not addressed releasing Palestinian prisoners, a key element of earlier agreements. Kun Ting-yang, Cable News.
Now let's take a look at the stock market. Sparked by technology stocks, the Hang Seng Index ended the day swelling 775 points. Top active stocks of the day: Tencent was up $38.50. Xiaomi was up 70 cents. Meituan was up $8.80. BYD was up $12.40. Foreign exchange against the Hong Kong dollar: Canadian dollar 5.41, Australian dollar 4.92. On to the weather now. Cloudy with a few rain patches, cool with more frequent rain tonight and tomorrow morning. The lowest temperature will be about 12 degrees in the urban areas, and a couple of degrees lower in the New Territories. The highest temperature will be around 15 degrees during the day. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our news tonight. I'm Evelyn Bai. Thanks for watching and good night.